right, so we're going to talk about wholesaling houses, step number 6, and that is making the offer. So this is another critical phase in the process. I see a lot of newer wholesalers fail at this stage because they're not properly presenting the offer to the seller. And what I mean by that is they email the offer, they text the offer, they wait too long to call the seller back and present the offer. So time's a big killer. So don't make those same mistakes. The correct way to do it is get the seller on the phone. And the reason we do that is you want to get a reaction. You want to know how the seller feels about your offer. Is it way too low? Are they, going to tell you that it's not even close? Are you in the ballpark? And they're not always going to show their cards right away. They're going to, sometimes, a lot of times sellers will um, not give you much, but other times they're going to, tell you, hey, that sounds good. How soon can you close? And you can move forward. So it's, again, I like to call the seller. It's just, I get that human connection. I also like to do it within 24 hours. I think that it just shows that you're interested in the house. You're diligent. You want to move quickly, and I think you just have a much higher success rate when you call the seller. Just getting the feedback on the phone versus just sending an email or texting. So don't make those same mistakes. Now, I do eventually email the offer, and usually I do it when I feel pretty good that the seller is going to at least give my offer some consideration. I will send an email, and usually that email is, it's pretty short and sweet. I will actually type up a contract. I'll put it in a DocuSign. I'll e-sign it myself, and then I'll attach that to an email. And I'll just go over the terms and conditions of the offer. So, what title company are we going to use? What date are we going to close? I always reiterate the closing costs that we're going to cover. So here in Michigan, we like to offer to pay the typical seller closing costs, which would include transfer tax, title insurance, closing fee, doc fee. Usually that ends up being between 1.2 and 1.5% of the purchase price. So I make sure that the seller understands there's not going to be any commissions because we're not real estate agents. There's not going to be any extra fees. And again, we are paying your closing costs. So that is a nice benefit that we can offer. I usually like to put some kind of close date in the contract, but I always say, hey, we're flexible. If you want to close sooner, we can usually close in 7 to 10 days. If you need to push it out, we can sometimes go 60, 90 days out, and give them the title company that we use. And that's it. I keep it pretty short and sweet. If you want to know more about the contract that we use, you can go to my website, crushingrei.com, and I will put a link in the description of this video too. But I have a whole section that talks about the purchase agreement we use. It is important that you use the correct purchase agreement when making an offer if it's going to be a wholesale deal. So what does that purchase agreement look like? There's really 3 key pieces that you're going to want. Some of these are disclosures, and some of them are just clauses in your contract. But those 3 key items that you want to have a no agency disclosure. You want to make sure it's clear that you are not acting as a real estate agent. Now, there are wholesalers out there that have their real estate license, and that's okay. I always say check with your attorney first. Every state is different. And again, a lot of it is just you have to disclose, right? You have to make sure you're disclosing that you are not representing that seller. You are acting as the buyer or the principal in the contract. So that's very important. The other clause I always want to put in there is my marketing clause, because I am going to market this property for sale. So I want to make sure that the seller is okay with that. I keep that very short and sweet. Again, go check out my the blog posts. I will actually tell you exactly what I say in my contract. And then the last piece, and this is we're going to go over this in detail in step 7, but the inspection period. And the inspection period is basically what allows you, it buys you time to market that property to your cash buyers, and then eventually assign that contract to a buyer. And many of your buyers, I would say most of your buyers, are probably going to want to see that property first. So it's really important how you sort of pitch the inspection period to the seller, and this is something that you want to at least mention before you put the property under contract. And I'll talk more about that in step 7. But you want to make sure you have an inspection period that gives you time and gives your buyers an opportunity to go and see that property. Usually I do 10 days. Sometimes if the seller is in a hurry, I will shorten that to 5 days. And then I actually have another strategy that I use if, for example, if I don't think it's the best deal and I'm a little bit unsure if I am going to find a buyer for that property, then I have another strategy that I use that's also worked very well for my business. So again, that's a lot of exciting things to talk about in the next step. But I think the biggest thing I wanted to really share here was how you present that offer. I usually get them on the phone. I usually will talk through how I came to the offer. I talk a little bit about the repairs. I don't always give them the number, but I just say, we plan on doing this, this, and this. Sometimes I'll go into even more detail and say, hey, this is what houses are selling for in your neighborhood. And I'll kind of run through my numbers so they can kind of see where I'm coming from. That really depends on the seller. That also depends on the deal. It's kind of a judgment call, but don't get too worried about, talking before you give them the offer. A lot of times sellers are really straightforward to the point. They want to know what the offer is. So, I try to give that to them within the first couple minutes of the phone call, especially if it's an investor, if it's a landlord, or somebody who owns a bunch of rental properties. A lot of times those people are going to be a lot more straightforward. Hey, just, cut the BS, give me the offer. I want to know what it is, versus maybe somebody like a homeowner. So, again, always call first. Now, if you can't get them on the phone after several attempts, that's fine. You can text them the offer. You can email them the offer. You might be less likely to get that deal because you're not going to get that direct feedback when you're speaking to them on the phone. So hopefully that tip will help you go out there and get more deals. So stay tuned for the next step number 7. We'll go over the inspection period and again, how important that is to discuss that ahead of time before you put the property under contract. And then so the seller is prepared to know what the process is. So cheers, everybody.